Thank you for the reminder. So we're going to start chapter 29, and it's going to be the beginning of the birth of the 11 Jewish tribes. If you all remember, there's 12 Jewish tribes, but there is one son that is not going to be born in the next two lessons that we're going to cover. That's going to be left for a later time. So that's why I entitled this lesson with the 11 Jewish tribes. And this is really the beginning of what all of these sons that are born by Jacob are going to be very instrumental throughout the Old Testament as we go on. And we're going to find that there's a lot of different things that are good and bad. And it's really based on their actions right now. In the next few chapters, we're going to notice that their descendants, just like Ishmael's descendants, the sins of the fathers are going to be passed down to the sons. So we see all of this playing out in history. But do I have any volunteers for verses 1 through 7? Does anybody want to read?
I can read.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, then Jacob went on his journey and came to the land of the sons of the east. He looked and saw a well in the field, and behold, 3 flocks of sheep were lying there beside it. For from that well they watered the flocks. Now the stone on the mouth of the well was large. When all the flocks were gathered there, they would then roll the stone from the mouth of the well and water the sheep, and put the stone back in its place on the mouth of the well. Jacob said to them, "My brothers, where are you from?" And they said, "We are from Haran." He said to them, "Do you know Laban, the son of Nahor? Nahor.
Yeah.
And they said, "We know him." And he said to them, "Is it well with him?" And they said, "It is well, and here is Rachel, his daughter's, the daughter coming with the sheep." He said, "Behold, it is still high day. It is not time for the livestock to be gathered. Water the sheep and go pasture them."
Mm-hmm. Okay. And then, so we'll start with those first few verses. So where did Jacob arrive, and what did he see in verses 1 through 2?
The land of his sons of the east.
The sons of the east. Very good. Yes.
He saw a well in the field. 3 sheep were beside it. They watered the flocks with the water of a well.
Okay, so he saw a well, and then he saw 3 flocks of sheep. So a flock is like several sheep, and they were lying beside it. And how is the stone on the mouth of the well described as? In verse 2, at the very last, what did they say that the stone in the mouth of the well was?
It's large.
It's large, so it almost makes you think that it's heavy, right?
Uh-huh.
So yeah. So that's what's going on. What was the practice of watering the sheep? In other words, how did the shepherds give the sheep water?
Okay.
They need to gather the flock. Or they roll the stone from the well's mouth, and then they water the sheep and put the stone back on the well's mouth.
Yeah, so they were trying to, it almost sounds at first that they're trying to economize their work. The commentary said that they were just being lazy, that they didn't want to take the time to like unroll the stone and then roll it back. And we're going to find out from Jacob that it wasn't that hard. And it says that was there just one man that he was talking to, or were there several? In verse 4. Like
There
right
were
there.
several. Yeah.
Yeah, there's several men, right? It's not just
Right.
like one man that he's talking to, because he's saying my brothers.
Right.
So
Question number 3.
yeah, question number 3. What 3 things did Jacob ask the men at the well?
Brothers, where are you from?
Mm-hmm.
And number 2, do you know
Laban.
Laban, the son of Nor? And number
Yeah,
3 is it well with Nor?
Nahor, yeah. Okay, so he did ask him all of that. And then who did they tell him that Rachel was the daughter of? Who was
Rachel, the daughter of Laban.
yeah, the daughter of Laban. And do you all remember who Laban was from the previous chapters?
His uncle.
Yeah, the uncle, and he was
the brother of Rachel. Rebecca, sorry.
yeah, the mother of Rebecca. I get them confused too. I get Rebecca and Rachel confused too. But Rebecca is the older one, that she's the wife of Isaac. You know, I found out something really interesting, and I'm gonna get it with time, but they were actually selling this timeline, and I have timelines in my computer too, so I don't know if they have it in that form. But this timeline of biblical events is like a round circle. And you know how we were going over, like in chapter 12, that Abraham and his father were pagans in the land, but all of a sudden it's like Abraham recognizes God, and he seems to know who God is, even though they were living in this foreign land. And if you look at the timeline, you know how the what do you call that, the bloodlines, it tells you how long the ancestors lived. Like Abraham lived 600 years, and Adam lived 900, and it tells you all of that. Well, it turns out that Noah, the one from the flood, was still alive when Abraham was alive. And it was like, whoa, what do you mean he was still alive? So all of these people still had those ancestors telling them about God and everything else. It was not forgotten. And that was really interesting. I had no idea about that. Anyway, I just wanted to pull it up. But anyway, so yeah, so the men told them that Rachel was the daughter of Laban, and who is the son of Nahor. Nahor was the brother of Abraham, if you remember. So, and that's why they kept on sending all these, Isaac, they wanted to get a bride from Nahor's family and everything, because it's within the same bloodline. Yes. Question 5. Why was Jacob questioning the men's practices of watering and pasturing their animals, and what was their explanation why they were waiting? I think we already went through this a little bit. But why were they questioning it?
Jacob was questioning because it was high noon.
Yeah.
And they couldn't gather the livestock till
it wasn't the time to gather the livestock, because they do their work. They're pasturing the animals during the day, and then in the late afternoon they come and then they water and stuff. But they had already stopped their work to wait near the well. So it was nowhere the time for them to. So he was questioning, it's like, why are you not, like, why don't you just, if you're gonna water them now, and then go about your work. So the 6th question is for personal application. Do you think that efficiency and success come from waiting or by acting? Please give instances where either can be best. So the men were trying to be efficient, right? Do you
Mhm.
do you think that their actions were more for success? That their waiting was efficient, or was acting? Do you think that it would have been more efficient if they acted?
Well, when I get the picture is you have to see the big picture by waiting and observing. If you act fast, you will do double the work.
Very good. Yes, I like that one. I like that one. A lot of the times, like this instance, it's like I think they were just being lazy too. But a lot of the things when you have a problem or you have a situation, like for example, I have a good example. You have a painting project, like the painting of the doors. And you have all the materials gathered and everything, and you say, okay, I'm gonna start. It's like I'm ready. You don't sand the door, you don't put any cloths to like protect your floors, and you just start painting because you're being so-called efficient. You just want to get it done. But what is left is like now you have a messy job because the paint is not taking well on the door. So now you have to wait until it dries, and then you have to sand it, and then you have to reapply. So now you've wasted all the paint that could have been, you could have like earned it, and now you have to clean the floors too. And if it would have just taken a little bit of time, and there's a lot of different situations in life, right, that are the same thing. It's like if we just prepare and we're patient, it goes better.
Mhm.
Anybody else wants to add anything else? Okay, let's keep on going. So going to verse 7. They told her that Rachel's daughter was coming. He tells them, behold, it's still high dry day. It's not time for the livestock to be gathered. Water the sheep and go pasture them. Verse 8. But they said, we cannot until all the flocks are gathered. And they rolled the stone from the mouth of the well. Then we water the sheep. While he was speaking with them, Rachel came with her father's sheep, for she was a shepherdess. And I don't think that there's any other woman that the Bible describes as a shepherdess. She was the only one that I remember. I thought that the shepherds were only women, but that was interesting. Okay, so when Jacob saw Rachel, the daughter of Laban, his mother's brother, and the sheep of Laban, his mother's brother, Jacob went up and rolled the stone from the mouth. It doesn't say that anybody helped him. So Jacob he went up and rolled the stone from the mouth of the well and watered the flock of Laban, his mother's brother. Then Jacob kissed Rachel and lifted his voice and wept. Jacob told Rachel that he was a relative of her father and that he was Rebekah's son, and she ran and told her father. Okay, so you see the difference? There was all these men, and this dude is only the one man, but despite all that they had told him, he didn't wait around. Okay. We already discussed 7. 8, what did Jacob do when he saw what did Jacob do when he saw Rachel with his kin's sheep? In verses 29, 10 to 11.
Rolled the stone and watered the flock.
Uh-huh.
Jacob kissed Rachel, lifted his voice and wept.
Yeah, so he was happy to see family, right? Yep. So remember that Jacob had been running. Esau had threatened to kill him. He was Mama's boy. Remember that Rebecca had helped him fool Isaac so that he could get the blessing. So yeah, so he's been in the run all this time in the desert and going through all of that. Question 9. Who did Jacob? Okay, we already said that. Oh no. Who did Jacob tell Rebecca he was, and what was her and Laban's response?
Jacob said he was the relative of his father. he was Rebekah's son.
Yeah. So they were so that what did that make them? What was Rachel and Jacob's relationship?
Cousin?
Her cousins.
Yeah,
Cousin.
first cousins. Very good. Okay, so what did Laban proclaim that Jacob was to him? Oh, we haven't gone through that yet, right?
No, on the 14th?
Yeah, no, we haven't gone through that. So she ran and told her father. So verse 13. So when Laban heard the news of Jacob, his sister's son, he ran to meet him and embraced him and kissed him and brought him to his house. Then he related to Laban all these things. Laban said to him, "Surely you are my bone and my flesh." And he stayed with him a month. Okay, so just by reading all of this, what feeling do you have about Laban so far? Does he seem like a mean man here, or anybody like somebody that's self-interested so far? That's not a question. I'm just like asking.
He seemed sincere in welcoming Jacob to his house.
Yeah, right. So he seems sincere. So when somebody acts sincere and treats you nicely, you kind of think that they're after your best interest, right? Especially since this guy is his uncle. So yeah, so that would, yeah, that's gonna change. So let's see. Question 10. What did Laban proclaim that Jacob was to him? In verse 14.
His bone and flesh.
Bone and flesh. So they were tight. They were like the same flesh and the same bone. Okay, so that really puts you at ease, right? So what did Laban offer Jacob? He would, wait a minute, no. I think that's it. And then we're going to go to verse 15. Did I read that? No, I haven't read that yet. Oh, yes. No, I haven't read that. Okay, verse 15. Then Laban said to Jacob, "Because you are my relative, should you therefore serve me for nothing? Tell me, what shall your wages be?" Now Laban had two daughters. The name of the older was Leah, and the name of the younger was Rachel. And Leah's eyes were weak, but Rachel was beautiful of form and face. Now, the experts don't really know for sure what is meant by the eyes are weak. Either she didn't see well, or her eyes like had a little
Droopy.
bit of like, yeah, like they're
So
you know
sick.
how, yeah, they get cross-eyed or something like that. But that, unfortunately, she wasn't attractive, right? Because they mentioned the eyes. And so that's what they mean by that. But Rachel was beautiful of form and face. Now Jacob loved Rachel, so he said, "I will serve you 7 years for your younger daughter Rachel." Laban said, "It is better that I give her to you than to give her to another man. Stay with me." So Jacob served 7 years for Rachel, and they seemed to him but a few days because of his love for her. Okay, so I want you to pay attention to this. This is not in the questions either, but just by what we read right now. Remember that there were two other people that were led with their eyes, and things did not go well. One of them was Lot. Remember that he got that nice little land and everything else? Who was the other one that you can remember that was being led by his taste, by his senses? Does anybody
Ada?
remember? Esau was one of them. Yeah, that's a good one. Edom, Esau, it's the same one. And actually, there's one more that was being led by his senses. Who was it? Remember that he liked game? It's Isaac.
Isaac.
Yeah, remember that Isaac liked the taste of the food and everything else? And he wasn't following the promise of God that it was going to be Jacob, the youngest, that was going to be the one that with the promise, right? So
Mhm.
he was like preferring Esau because he liked the taste of gain. So all of those people were being led by their senses, by sight. But Abraham, did he use his sight or did he use his faith to follow God?
His faith.
Faith.
His
Faith.
faith. Okay. So this is going to be very important because we see here that Jacob is looking at Rachel through his eyes. He's not looking at the big picture. And we're going to see that even though Rachel, he's all over gaga with Rachel, she is not going to be the mother of the promise. Okay. It's going to be the woman with the weak eyes. Okay. So much is done, like he did a lot with Rachel, and he's so in love with Rachel, but she is not the one with the line of Jesus Christ, where Jesus Christ came through. So God always has purpose, even for those, the ones that we don't see, and the ones that are not loved by society because they're not handsome or all this. We're going to see that God chooses those that are of poor spirit, that don't necessarily are the ones that others prefer. Like David, nobody like he was the least of all the brothers, and that's who God chose. So yeah, so that's very important. You're going to see that theme again here, where Jacob is looking at Rachel, but that is not God's plan for the promise to be from where it's going to come. Okay, so what were the names of Laban's two daughters? We're in question 12. And how are they described, and who did Jacob prefer? We already went through that a little bit, but
Leah and Rachel, and he
Leah,
preferred Rachel.
he preferred
Leah
Rachel.
was the older one, yes.
Yeah, Leah was the other one, but how is she described?
She had weak eyes or delicate
Yeah, weak eyes, whatever that. Whatever.
Cross-eyed.
Yeah, maybe she had like cataracts or something. I don't know. Okay, so for exchange for getting Rachel, how many years did Jacob offer to work for Laban?
7 years.
7 years. That's a lot of years. Did Laban agree to give Rachel to Jacob?
Yeah.
He
No.
did, right? So he told them, yeah, you can have her. Yeah, he had to work though. How did the years seem to Jacob? Those 7 years.
It felt like a few days to Jacob.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Because
And
he loved
why?
her.
Yeah.
Because he loved Rachel.
He loved Rachel. So for personal thought, have you ever had to endure a difficult, lengthy situation that seemed to be very tough, but because of the expected reward, it didn't seem so bad?
Well,
I try to
yeah,
think about it. Yeah.
it's kind of, buying my first truck, brand
Mm-hmm.
new, did not hurt at all. I was going to be the owner of the new truck someday.
Mm-hmm.
So I still have it. So
Yeah, it's
didn't feel
like
that, yeah, I didn't feel that bad driving a
mhm.
new truck. Give him his one.
Yeah, it's like I try to think this in relation to nursing school and stuff like that, but I have to admit the expected reward was like, I mean, that was tough. It's like I was really depressed. This seminary work, I think, is a little bit more with this one. Even though the expected reward is not monetary, I'm enjoying the process because I enjoy the material and stuff. So, um, but yeah, that's a good point. Okay, so what? Let's keep on going. because of his love for her. So now Laban's true colors come out. Verse 21. Then Jacob said to Laban, give me my wife, singular, my wife, for my time is completed that I may go into her. So he's not like messing around. Laban gathered all the men of the place and made a feast. Now in the evening he took his daughter Leah and brought her to him, which means Jacob. And Jacob went into her. Laban also gave his maid Zilpah to his daughter Leah as a maid. It came about in the morning that, behold, it was Leah. And he said to Laban, what is this that you have done to me? Was it not for Rachel that I served with you? Why then have you deceived me? But Laban said, it is not the practice in our place to marry off the younger before the firstborn. Complete the week of this one, and we will give you the other also for the service which you shall serve with me for another 7 years. Jacob did so and completed her week, and he gave him his daughter Rachel as his wife. Laban also gave his maid Bilhah to his daughter Rachel as her maid. So Jacob went into Rachel also, and indeed he loved Rachel more than Leah, and he served with Laban for another 7 years. Okay, so these are a lot of women already involved here, which is never a good thing, right? To have all these women. Okay. All right, so where are we? Question 15. What did Jacob demand after he completed his 7 years? But what did Laban do? So what did he tell Laban?
To give him his wife, he completed. Rachel.
Yeah, and what did Laban do?
Laban talked to his daughter Leah after a big feast and brought her to Jacob, and he had relations.
Okay, so as I'm reading all of this and all of this enchilada, we know that Laban fooled Jacob, right? But who else fooled Jacob in this whole situation? Who else knew about it?
The mother of Jacob between her two sons.
Well, yeah, for the other deception, but in this instance, Laban gave her Leah, but what about Leah herself? It's like, surely she knew that it was going to be Rachel that Jacob wanted. So she still, went and slept with him. But anyway, that's besides the point, because and during those days, women were obedient to their parents and all of this. So, and that was the custom, that the oldest was always to get married before the youngest. But still, the reason why I chuckled is because of verse 25, when he says, why then have you deceived me? So who had deceived who before?
Jacob deceived both Isaac and Esau before.
Yeah, he deceived both of them. So now he's like, all of a sudden it's like it hurts him to be deceived. So now payback time is coming, right? Okay, so that's question 16. Who came as a package deal with Leah in verse 24?
Laban also gave his maid Zilpah to his daughter Leah as a maid.
Yeah, that's correct. Okay, so what did Jacob find out the following morning in Genesis 29:25?
Laban deceived him with Leah, his daughter, not Rachel.
Yeah, so it must have been very dark, or he must have been very drunk. We don't know. But it must have been quite the party, right? Okay, so we already went through that. Question 19. What was Laban's excuse for not giving Jacob Rachel?
It was not his practice in his place to marry off the younger daughter than the older daughter.
And did he tell him that when Jacob asked for Rachel's hand before he agreed to work the 7 years for Rachel?
No.
Laban lied and said he would
Lied.
give Rachel to him.
Yeah, so he wanted to keep him there for the 7 years of work, right?
Mhm.
So he did it all on purpose. He was not, now we're getting to know who Laban is.
So you're telling me he was there 14 years?
Exactly. As a matter of fact, a little bit more than that, we're going to find out in the next chapter. He's going to be there for a little bit longer than that. Okay, so what did Laban propose to Jacob in question 20 for him to win Rachel? In verse 27, you already mentioned it.
Complete a week, and he would give Rachel to him also for another 7 years.
For another 7 years, exactly. Okay, so let's keep on going. Verse 28. Jacob did so and completed her week, and he gave him his daughter Rachel as his wife. Laban also gave his maid Bilhah to his daughter Rachel as her maid. Verse 30. So Jacob went into Rachel also, and indeed he loved. I think I already read all this. Now, okay. And he served with Laban for another 7 years. Verse 31. Now the Lord saw that Leah was unloved, and he opened her womb, but Rachel was barren. Leah conceived and bore a son and named him Reuben, for she said, because the Lord has seen my affliction, surely now my husband will love me. 33. Then she conceived again and bore a son and said, because the Lord has heard that I am unloved, he has therefore given me this son also. So she named him Simeon. 34. She conceived again and bore a son and said, now this time my husband will become attached to me, because I had borne him 3 sons. Therefore he was named Levi. And she conceived again and bore a son and said, this time I will praise the Lord. Therefore she named him Judah. Then she stopped bearing. Okay, so we're going to start with verse question 21. What happened after Leah's wedding week in verse 28 to 29? So he got married to Leah, and then what happened after that?
Jacob completed her week. Laban gave him his daughter Rachel. Laban gave his maid to Rachel.
Yeah, so he's hopping from one sister to the other. So how do you think, if you were Leah, Jacob's first wife, how would you feel knowing that your husband, number one, didn't love you, had been tricked into marrying you, and that he loved your sister? Do you think that she felt all loved and all,
Oh, she can't blame Jacob, because the blame went to her dad because he lied to Jacob.
And you do have a big point, because Jacob always said that he loved Rachel, right? He never, but at the same time, he still, he's over here. He loves the other girl, but it sounds to me with the other ones that he was still having sex with Leah, right? Because she's having all these kids. So, you can't blame him either, but at the same time, it's like, I think I would have felt worse if, somebody loves my sister and he's still sleeping with me. I don't know. That just seems all sorts of wrong. But anyway, I'm superimposing our customs to that time, and that's not. Because before, in that age, it was very important to have children. And so women would get a lot of joy from having children. And you could tell that she's she's hoping that these children are gonna gain favor. Okay. Question 22. What is stressed again about Jacob's feeling for Rachel in verse 29-30? And what did he do because he had gotten Rachel? In verse 30.
Verse 30.
Yeah, what does it say again that how Jacob felt about Rachel?
Oh, he loved her.
Right.
He
Like-
worked 7 more years.
Yeah, so now it's repeated again, right? That he loves Rachel, that he loves Rachel. So it's really stressing. Like whenever there's repetition, it means that it was something that was very apparent. It's like something that's there. And unfortunately, Leah just caught in the middle. But notice that the Lord saw Leah's pain of being unloved. Does it say that Jacob saw Leah's pain? It
Yeah.
doesn't say that Jacob was like, he didn't care about Leah's pain, but who cared about Leah's pain?
The Lord.
The Lord.
Because
Yes,
the
the
Lord
saw Leah.
gave her a child by
Several
Jacob.
children.
Several children. Because
Several children.
Rachel
Yes.
couldn't have any.
Yes.
Mhm.
So he's blessing her with that, right? Like I said, children were extremely important in that age because that was like the joy of the woman. Okay, so application, make no mistake, the Lord sees her pain and or mistreatment by others. Name the sons of Leah named in chapter 29. Did I already say this? Yeah.
Yes.
And what was her reasoning for doing in the chart below? So let's go over this together. What was the first named son in verse 32?
Reuben.
Okay, and why did she call him that?
The Lord seen her affliction.
Uh-huh. And
Yes,
what was the
and-
second thing she was hoping for?
Well, loved by Jacob.
Yeah, so she was hoping that he was going to bring him. So all of this, this is each name has a meaning in like Jewish names have a meaning. So Reuben means because the Lord has seen my affliction. That's what it means. Okay. So verse 33, what was the name of the second son?
Simon.
Simon. So Simon means,
The
what does
Lord
it mean?
has heard me. I am unloved.
Yes. So this is sad, right? Okay, so verse 34. What was the name of that son?
Levi.
Okay, and what does that mean?
This time my husband will be attached because I have 3 sons.
Okay, that's very good. Okay, so verse 35. What was the name of that one?
Judah.
Uh-huh. And
This
what
time
does
I
that mean?
praise the Lord.
Okay, so what was different between the meaning of Judah's name and the other boys' names? What was different?
Well, the 3 discussed she wanted love with Jacob, but the 4th one, she just wanted to praise God.
Yeah, she just wanted to praise God, right? So it's kind of important. Like a lot of the times, it's very important to use like your faith siblings when you start to feel sorry about yourself. Like, for example, I've been single all my life. And this was something that came up in that woman's group that I belong to, in that a lot of the times you get a faith sibling and apply what they were going through to your life. So in this situation with Leah, it's like she wasn't being loved by by Jacob. But she was loved by God, and God gave him children. She didn't give Rachel children. But the response should not always be to feel sorry for oneself. It's like when you feel sorry for yourself, or it doesn't lead to anything. And like the fourth kid, it's like she finally praised God. It's like this God doesn't, I mean, this, I know Jacob doesn't love me. It's like I'm not going to focus on getting love from him anymore. It's God from where my blessings are coming from. So I'm just going to praise him. And a lot of the times it's like we need to get away from self-pity and just praise God anyway. You just have to praise him. Now, who was Judah the ancestor of?
Jesus.
Jesus. Okay. So this is very important to know that Leah was the mother of the ancestor of Jesus. And it's when she started praising the Lord, and that was his name, that's the ancestor. It's just cool, right? And she's going to have some more children and stuff like that, but we're going to find out that not all of her sons were good people. But she was the mother of the promise. So let's go over the little commentary. It says Jacob's joyful prospect of marrying Rachel turned by Laban's deception into a nightmare. In Laban, Jacob met his match and also his means of discipline. Jacob had deceived his own brother and father, and now was deceived by his mother's brother. 20 years of drudgery. Remember, it's not just 14, Joe. 20 years of drudgery, affliction, and deception lay ahead. Through Laban, he received his own medicine of duplicity, which means fooling other people. But Jacob's tenacity shows that he counted these as minor setbacks. God took him, developed his character, turned the fruits of his deception into blessing, and built the promised seed, the nation of Israel. The Bible demonstrates over and over the principle that what a man sows, he reaps. Some have called this irony or poetic justice, but it is more than that. It is divine retribution in which there is often a measure for measure turn of affairs. God orders the affairs of people to set things right. Okay, so we know that Jacob was already like the promised one and everything because of the prophecy that Rebecca had when the twins were in the womb and everything. And they fooled Isaac and everything. So a lot of the times, you may think, well, it was justified that he fooled them. It doesn't seem so, because now God is using Laban to also give him something and discipline him, and so that he can realize that fooling people is not right. So God is trying to take that away from him, because that was something that Jacob was very familiar of doing it. He had already used the lentil soup to get the firstborn position from Esau. And then he used the sheepskin in his arms. Let's suppose that his mother did tell him what to do, but he should have also said, hey, I'm not going to lie to my father. So God would have found a way to give him that position, but they went through fooling his father and everything. So now this is going to be, like I said, he says, as God took him, developed his character, turned the fruits of his deception into blessing, and built the promised seed, the nation of Israel. So a lot of the times God will use things that are not good in us, and he will, discipline us so that those things can be refined. So it's we may think that it's not a big deal, but it'll come up. It is divine retribution in which there is often a measure for measure. turn of affairs. God orders the affairs of people to set things right. With Jacob, this deception was perfectly fitted. It was divine punishment to bring his own craftiness before his eyes. So Jacob needed to see that his craftiness was not good. He had deceptively presented himself to his father under the guise of Esau, the firstborn. Now Leah, the firstborn, was deceptively introduced to him under the guise of Rachel, the younger. So you see how he used that? Now the eldest is fooling is taking the place of the youngest. So after his initial reaction, Jacob recognized the deception for what it was and accepted it. So what comes around turns around, right? So the next week we're going to be studying about the other children of Jacob. He has a lot of children. And remember that there's going to be 12. We're just going to be talking about 11. And then we're going to be talking of some speckled goats and all these different things that he's going to be doing. But that is just to show you how God is blessing Jacob. Who else has God blessed so far that you have seen from our studies? Can you all think about who else God has blessed? How about the person in chapter 12? Remember that God promised blessings? Who else did he promise? Who else did he bless? Who was the first one?
Abraham?
Abraham, very good. So God blessed Abraham first, and then who was the second person that he blessed? Who was his son?
Was it Isaac?
Isaac. Isaac was the second one that he's blessed. And then Jacob is going to be the third one that he blesses.
Jacob.
Remember that in chapter 12, let me pull this up again. In chapter 12, let's go to 12. Jacob tells him that he's going to make him a great nation and I will bless you. Okay. And then if you remember, Lot and Abraham had to split up because they had a lot. They also had flocks and herds and tents, and they couldn't sustain them while dwelling together, for their possessions were so great that they were not able to remain together. So this was Abraham. He was very rich, right? And then the second one is going to be Isaac. Let's go to Isaac. So God promises again to Isaac that he's going to bless him. So this is the same blessing. Abraham's treachery. Isaac is born. And then Sarah turns out, man, Sarah and Hagar were always getting into it. Death and burial of Sarah. And then a bride for Isaac. So he finds everything, Rebecca's chosen and everything, and then God is going to make the same promise to Isaac. So now Abraham gave all that he had to Isaac, but to the sons of his concubines and all of that, descendants of Ishmael, Isaac's son. Where else does he tell him? I'm trying to find the blessing. It just tells them where they blessed Rebecca and stuff. Descendants Isaac's son. And then, so this is going to be important too, because this is going to come up next week with Isaac prayed to the Lord on behalf of his wife. So here he's telling them about the wound, it's going to say when the bread, where did God bless Isaac? Oh, here. It says, sojourn in this land, and I will be with you and bless you, for to you and your descendants I will give all these lands, and I will establish the oath which I swear to your fathers Abraham. So when God made a covenant with Abraham, he told him that he was going to be blessed, like, and in all his future generations were going to be blessed. So
Yes.
now Isaac is inheriting that same blessing. So now Jacob is inheriting the same blessing. Okay. So not only the blessing of having all these descendants, like that number more than the stars, but also that they're going to have you know, they become very wealthy too. So with Jacob's dream too, your descendants will also be like the dust of the earth, and you will spread out to the west and the east, and your descendants should be all the families of the earth should be blessed. This is the same blessing that was given to Abraham, remember, in chapter 12. And this is where the scholars believe that that's what they're referring to Jesus, that all the families of the earth will be blessed, because the God, we come to know Jesus Christ because that's one of their descendants. It's Jacob's descendant. And then it tells you, I'm with you, I will keep you wherever you go, and will bring you back to this land. So they always were meant to go back to the land that was promised, which is Canaan. Okay. So just remember that all that promise is going to be inherited, and it gets inherited, and it gets inherited. So that those are the three men that it's so far have gotten God's blessing: Abraham, Isaac, and now Jacob. All right. Any questions? Okay, let me start recording. Stop recording.